Hello fans of Marvel heroes, I finally leveled my Doctor Doom to 60 and quite a few of you have been asking me how I feel about Doctor Doom as a hero, is it right time to unlock and so on. So I thought I'd make a quick video on how I feel about Doctor Doom in general, like just a brief review. Also, I would like to revisit the legendary video that I've made earlier on because now I have a little bit more experience, so I thought maybe I come from a different angle to it, and the most important part about this video, I would like to share with you my build analysis, because before I do anything, usually for a hero, I would just take down all the numbers and churn out the numbers so on. Now, because Doom is so complex, so much depth in it, it actually took me a long time to get all the numbers, in a manner that I like to present to you. By doing that, I could have leveled Doctor Doom like twice over, but that's okay. I enjoy number crunching, and so it's more like just give some insight on the various builds that he has. He has a lot of build options, definitely. So I thought I'd share with you a little bit insight on that one. I will do another video, a proper one on Doctor Doom. The next one I'm going to do is going to be in one of the builds that I feel comfortable with. Not necessarily the most powerful, but I find it fun and find it easy to handle. Because a lot of you actually asked me, commented that Doctor Doom is a little bit, complex to play and so on. So I thought maybe I'd share some insight in this video about the build analysis and some of the tips I would like to share with you. And I'll do another video on the on my take on how to build Doom up, to face the end game content. All right. So now. I've actually prepared a whole list of stuff to talk to you guys because over lunch, because I thought your time is very precious and I just would like to cover all ground. And okay, so before I start on this video, I would just like to say that I really love this recon device no longer required to do any of those build reset, omega point reset and so on, because I had so much fun trying out different build while I'm leveling. I think I feel quite a lot of you could have would have done the same thing I've done, because leveling now is such a joy. You can just invest in your basic power to start with, and after that reset it, try some power, reset it, try other power. That is exactly a game that we have been wishing for the last 2 years, and finally it is. Great job Gazillion for listening to us. So yeah, that's great. And Team Up 2.0, a lot of you asked me about Team Up 2.0 as well. Now I've leveled, actually where's my magic right now? My magic's about I don't know how you call it, level 55, yeah, and I'm still leveling up, not hitting a cap yet. But I've a lot of fun with Team Up. I can see what she's doing most of the time, and sometimes, sorry. Most of the time she can survive in Cosmic Terminal no problem these days, which is what it's supposed to be. Cosmic Patrol is a little bit challenging, but then again, Cosmic Patrol not even hero can survive, so sometimes. So what do you expect of the Team Up? And but I'll do another video on Team Up 2.0 another time. But let's go back to Doom. Yeah, Doctor Doom. I have a lot of fun leveling him because Doctor Doom has a great area damage, and any heroes with a good area damage from early level to late level is going to be a blast to play anyway. I came from the Vision leveling. It was a painful experience. Doom is just like a whole world of different. Now maybe he's strong, maybe he seems pretty strong, but then again I think it's all because of the area power that he has right up front in the game. And now you can just play around with all the basic as well, so I mean that helps a lot. It is going to be a great level to prestige as well. I would definitely take him to another round of prestiging because it's such a fun to just level him up. I think his voice acting is fantastic. It's so he has the kind of attitude to it. I think as a villain turned hero, I guess. It's great. It always put a smile on my face listening to his, the voice acting. It's so cocky. And but the most fantastic thing about Doom is his build options. Now I've seen Iron Man. I thought, there is quite a few build options there. But Doom not only have build variety, but has depth to it as well. I'll show it to you a little bit later on. That may probably help to custom Doom to your play style. It has it has more build option than any other heroes I've played. So yeah, I mean, that is really a strong recommendation, as well as I really have a lot of fun leveling him. In terms of recommendation review, yeah, I mean, he's like a 5-star hero. Is he buggy? I think there are some bugs there. I don't think it's really game breaking. There are some bugs. I'm aware there are some bugs there, and but I mean, by and large, he's playable and he's all right. I mean, there isn't anything that stopped me from really enjoying the hero. Is he really tuned up too high? I think a lot of people, I mean, even I myself, I don't really enjoy playing a hero that are too strong by mistake, because Gazillion always very quick to buff a hero but very slow to nerf a hero, because they don't want to cause unhappiness, especially when the hero is still selling and all. They wouldn't want to just nerf the hero and everybody just stop playing the hero. So I would presume he will be at this stage for a while, provided that there's no game breaking bugs that we haven't seen yet. Then who knows, he could be a new standard. But so far at end game, he's alright. I mean, he's not like that fantastically strong. I mean, there are a lot of very strong heroes these days due to all the tuning as well. So I wouldn't really put him as like really outline there. But his leveling seems very strong. But like I said, a lot of heroes that has good area damage usually perceived to be pretty strong as well. I mean, at least from my experience. All right. So and also, yeah, I mean, back to the team up 2.0, I think you guys must have seen the team up gear. So I used to have a whole stash full of team up gear, but I think those are all obsolete because the new ones are so much better. In terms of now they grant you the percentage rather than rating itself, and it seems quite high, some of this percentage. Like I get like a 3% base for certain things, and you multiply, it's already 120, right? And you can have like a few affixes that has the 3% max of it. So yeah, I mean, that seems to make most of my team up gear kind of obsolete. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, the legendary wise, I still stick to my original thought about his legendary, that if you let's talk about grade 70, right? So if you are into hybrid, I think Dr. Doom more or less is hybrid. You can't really keep it pure anyway. There are ways, but still, I mean, you will hybrid at least 2, even if you specialize into one of the 3 trees. So as a hybrid hero, if you have the World Stone, you probably would pick up a Power Cosmic as your legendary, grade 70, or a Gunir if you don't have it enough currency. Yeah, for Summoner, it's going to be Trident for grade 70, so there's no dispute to it. For grade 80 now, before I do make any recommendation on grade 80, I always would like to reinstate that go back to the video I did a review on all the grade 80 legendary. I always say that if your hero does pure damage, X. Warlock's Eyes and the Rod is going to flare. Those are really good. Now, if you can't, so in Dr. Doom's case means you can't, then you try to either build a range build or melee build, because a range build you can use a bow, melee can use Excalibur, which for Dr. Doom, if you do sorcery, you probably can stick to a range build because of the you pick something from the path tree, and so I mean, by and large, I mean that is still my stance, and for grade 80, of course, Summoner is Trident. So always go back to the look at your tool set, meaning that all the power that you have decided to use, and to observe which one contribute the most. If it is a pure damage, then you go for all the pure damage legendary grade 80. Otherwise, go for either range or melee, which is the bow or Excalibur. Otherwise, there are many options. You can't really go lower than that. You just stick to Power Cosmic, right? Okay. So that is done on that part. Now, so I would like to just share with you the build analysis part of it. So for those who are new to this Dr. Doom, he has 3 trees like all other heroes, but it's actually very, very interesting. You could specialize into certain trees like the This one is specialized in the tech tree, specialized in the sorcery tree, and specialized in the Latveria tree. Each of them has their own, kind of like flavor to it. So for the tech and the sorcery specialization, you gain a certain buff, like 25% base buff on the tech power or on the sorcery power. And once you've chosen either tech or sorcery, you lock yourself out from the other tree if you want to use the power that consume either magic or power. Sorry. Power that consume power or magic. Yeah, mouthful. Okay, so what it really means is that if you specialize in tag, the most you can do from sorcery is either a movement build, movement that does no damage, or a basic. That's all it is. All right, and you are free to pick anything here, but you can't pick the signature. So that's the rule of the game. All right. So if you are on the sorcery, if you specialize in the sorcery, then you lose your power, kind of like the dial, but you can all this power become buffed. Some of them behave a little bit differently, so it's very nice. There's a depth to it, but you won't be able to use any of this tech power except the one that's basic. All right, and but you are free to use any Latveria, except you can't do signature. And if you do this specialize into this Latveria, you actually back to the power and the magic, kind of the 2 dials there or 2 resource there. Is very nice. And of course, all the you have a summon ally damage increase, and the and other things that you can do as well. The only thing you can actually use any of the tech and sorcery power. The only thing you can't use is the signature. Otherwise, it's just too powerful, right? And also, the signature sort of like duration cooldown get reduced as you specialize. So that's a perk of specialization. And before I move on, if you notice that 25% on this buff on this sorcery or tech, while 50% on the summon ally damage. If you watch my video before, I did mention that the trade-off between the two is 1 to 2. All right, so yeah, I mean it's good to see some validation here that So in a way, those two are pretty balanced in the sense that 50% summon ally damage actually is 25% base damage. It's good for me to see some validation there. All right, so but if you do not back to the build, if you do not specialize, you actually could get a base damage buff up to 30%. All right, for the Wheel of Doom. The only drawback is that I got some numbers to share with you. I know a lot of you are interested to look in the numbers instead of just taking my word for it, which is cool because that is I love to share how I do it behind the scene. The only thing is that although this is like a 30%, while this is like a 25%, but because if you don't specialize, your buff to the tree is only 25% when you use a signature for 8 seconds under 40-second cooldown. But if you specialize, you will actually gain a 50% for 8 seconds or for cooldown 30 seconds. So actually the buff is quite a fair bit here as well. All right, and also before I move on to the actual number itself, just want to highlight to you that under sorcery there's something called the Rich Reckoning. I hope I pronounced it correctly. That give a vulnerability 10% damage buff to all the power, to all the damage dealt. But if you go for tag, you actually has something like 25% extra damage. So the tag tree buff a bit higher compared to this tree. That's what I'm trying to say. And of course, when it comes to when you don't specialize, when you specialize into a summoner, you can only use this one for the 10% debuff. All right. So I hope that gives you an idea on what the build is like. I'm not going to dwell too much on it. Oh yeah, one more thing is that this summon here will actually give you like a 5% melee power base and the 5% melee power range power base as well. So it is useful for our calculation later. That's why I would like to mention that to you. You'll see why. All right. So that is very much on Dr. Doom. And now when I begin my analysis, I would like to analyze at least from raw data without gear, without Omega system, without hero synergy, only with some of the passive that I would max or at least max it for to observe. I would like to see from a base design perspective, if I am to pick the either 6 most viable power to use, I reserve one maxed up for the passive, another probably for the health, and some 1 point here and there, because you need the 1 point here and there. So I just assume that I have 4 scenarios, right? So one is the try build without any specialization. The other is tech specialization, sorcery specialization, Latveria specialization. 4 scenarios, and each of the scenarios I simulate 6 power that I will choose based on what I've seen here and based on number. Now, whether it is fun in game or not, I'll have to test it later, probably in another video. But what I do is that I want to see from a base setting perspective, what is the variant between the 4 scenarios. So that is what I'm trying to do here. And also for me to pick power as well, because without going through this exercise, I wouldn't know. Well, I kind of know what power to pick, but I would like some backup with the numbers, or what kind of trade-off I'm talking about if I pick this power versus the other power. Because from the tag itself, like for instance this one, they give you area melee tag. You know the area is going to be lesser than say something like this melee tag, because of the area tag to it. They bring down the DPS so as to, because you are dealing damage to multiple targets. So that's how the whole game works, all right? Yeah, so that's the build itself. So what I'll do right now is that I'll start with something called the Wheel of Doom. Now, Wheel of Doom is, this passive here. It gives me a certain percent, 548 damage rating. And I want this one to be in first, because I need to do a lot of simulation through different scenario. If I don't unlock this one, I won't have it. And anyway, in actual scenario, this has to be unlocked anyway. So I use this as a base. So what I do is that, I copy down. Remember, the damage rating is something that you ignore because it's being reflected in the physical, energy and mental. So I copy everything down, and my Doom, Dr. Doom at 60 without gear, without anything, is 4 strength, 4 fighting, and 6 energy. And those translate to all these base at 12%, 16%. All right. 16%, 24%. So because I have higher energy compared to strength, all right. So that comes as no surprise. So now, why do I want to do this? Is I just want to validate against something I'm going to do later on. You will see it. So I'll see that, okay, so energy itself, as a 60 Doom without any gear is about 149.7%. And I'm going to use the 5% buff as my scenario later. You'll see why. But I want to see 5% buff is that for every 1%, how many actual percent I'm gaining. It is important because as your base getting higher and higher, as you gear up, that 5% is going to be seen less and less significance, right? Because if your energy is going to be like 300 to 400%, which I think is about 300 or 350 if you gear him correctly, or even 400, that 5% is not going to see that significance, right? So I always measure something like, what's the percentage change for that 1% buff that I go in, right? So because that's my baseline, I want to see that. I'll tell you why. So physical is going to scale up better with the 5% buff because it has a lesser strength to it, right? Because the base of energy is higher. I use this as a validation, but the actual I use the DPS change. You see. So what I do is that I'll start with all gear stripped, yeah. Omega and synergy reset, and the Wheel of Doom at 20%. Before any those 30% base damage increase or 3 damage types. So I don't factor those in. Whatever in the tooltip, I take it. So for example, what I do is that what I've done is that I make sure that even the team up gear is taken off, because that actually affected my my whole number. I spent another 1.5 hours just to copy all the numbers again because I forgot that there's a team up gear. Yeah, so that's my life. So what I've done is that I will just increase the number, and I'll see that the range of it, and I copy this to here so as to take an average of the two. So it's a lot number. And by the way, there's a bug somewhere here as well that I have to confirm, and the number kind of changes. Yeah, it's strange. So I mean, this field power has a bug on the display. So So where was I? So yeah, so what I've done is that I've gone through each power without any specialization and copy all the average value, and it all comes down to something like that. And I calculate, as always, I always calculate the damage per second. All right, and and I calculate the damage per resource as well, because I want to see whether some of them is like is it going to be efficient, because if you bring down the power and measure too fast, I can't recuperate, right? Even with the med kit spirit regen. So I've done this study. I went through the basic power. This is my baseline. After that, I went through the tech tree, looking through all these things, and those are fine. Those are pretty straightforward. Then the sorcery is also pretty straightforward. Now this one I actually have to look at it myself, because all these are single target, by the way, numbers are single target. So for the Art of Doom, that I have to actually use it and observe, because it does the damage as well as the arc as well. So I need to see the arc hit how many times. So I actually observe that it hit 3 times. So in my formula here, that I multiply the arc damage by 3 if you're hitting a single target. So that's what I've done. What else have I done? So I've done all these things. For the summoner, the pets are always a pain to do theory crafting, because Gazillion somehow just hide all the attack speed from the pet. So I have to manually count how many times it hits. So for example, Declaration of War, when I summon those guards there, I have to observe how many times it hits. So basically it hit 11 times before it explode, and also it has 2 melee and 1 range. It doesn't reflect in the tooltip. So basically, I have to manually do all these calculations. And for this one as well, I look at within 10 seconds how many times you hit with an explosion, as well as how many times it takes when you use these 2 pets as well, the Inferno as well as War Drums. So yeah, I mean that's one of them. And after that, also same thing for the signature. I will observe how many times each soldier shoots, which is 12 times. So yeah, so that is the thing I've done as signature as well. And by the way, one thing to talk about is unthinkable, which is one of the power that you can do a layer that you can do a damage over time, but it doesn't layer on top of each other. So it just go by 3 areas with no overlap. So you can't really do 3 unthinkable damage over time and hope that you'll take 3 times. It doesn't work that way. I tested it out. So yeah, it's a bummer. But that's fine. No. So what does it tell you? The story. Forget about the all the build specialization. Just look at the story here, right? So well, let's not talk about basic, because that's probably not something I'm interested in. So, as expected, the Gwalet, which is the melee damage, is going to be, because it's not area, it's the highest. It's actually higher by this one quite a fair bit, which is a shame, because there aren't many energy damage. If you want to have tri-build, which is like you want to have both energy, mental, and physical, you have got to mix the 3 type. Now, of course, what you could do is that you can mix in a basic energy just to buff your hybrid damage. But I always don't really like the kind of like gameplay whereby I want power that has a purpose to it. I know a lot of people get a really good DPS from all these hotbar dancing, because I don't really have that many slots. And if one of my slot is a basic that use it to proc certain things, it's just not in my game philosophy. I don't enjoy that kind of gameplay. Everything to me, I mean, vision is very complex, but every single button has a purpose to it. And the purpose, if the purpose is just to get around certain things, I don't know. I don't really feel like it. So yeah, I mean, if you are on a tech tree, if you are on a tri-build, of course, you probably have to look into either this one, or you want to look into the Gwalet, and but then you have to use this one energy to kind of do what you need to do, so like dance a little bit every 10 seconds from the power cosmic to proc, all right, or even your artifact. Okay, so there's no surprise. Or you can do range as well. So range is this one. Now there's a cost reduction components for the assured destruction as well as the Gwalet. But to do that, you need something called the crumple fool. Now, when you are not when you are not specialized, there's no cooldown, so you need to reapply at 4 seconds. So you have to keep remembering that every 4 seconds you reapply, and after that, you gain some spirit reduction or cost reduction for the other two, one of the two, right? But I mean, it's not really that. I don't know. I don't really enjoy that as well because I need the time. When you go tech specialization, it's a different story because this become a cooldown instead of like a reapply. So that become a better design. So yeah, I mean, but you also look at the DPS, it's actually pretty bad. So I wouldn't really think too much on that. And of course, this one is to debuff. You probably don't need 20 rank to it because the DPS is just so little, right? So little. Okay. I mean, you could do tag for your single spender, or you can do sorcery as well. There's either way is fine, but you just have to be mindful that. I mean, you can swap things around. I'll do another video on tri-build, but all these numbers tell you a story that some of these are pretty. I mean, there is a range to it, so you have to make a conscious decision. What you like to do is it something that you want to like the area which is nice for cosmic patrol environment, or you go for something like this one, somewhere in the middle ground, whereby it does like a nice kind of like DPS as well. So yeah, I mean the DPS range is around 40k, 43, 36 to 43. All right, so that is totally your choice. Actually, I love Orb of Doom. The sound is just so beautiful when you use it. It's kind of like deep bass to it. I really love it. Just that it is. It's a very specific environment that you use it. I may just spec it for fun, right? I mean, I had a lot of fun using this Orb of Doom. So yeah, I mean, I just would like to walk you through some power. I think beneath the Doom's boot is something that is a lot of people like it because there's a 10% damage negation. But DPS is alright, about 10k at the raw, right? So these are all layers on top. Why I say it's just alright because you compare what. Like the pets can do, I'll show you later. So yeah, I mean here, this part is the thing, right? If you summon the pet instead of doing all these things, I mean the pets are doing pretty alright. Even, you're looking at some of this like, I mean, it does double of what the believe the Doom's boot does. But I mean, then again, I'll talk a little bit about the pets in a tri-build mode later. Right, or in a non-summon mode later, because all this number, bear in mind that without gear and so on, but as you gear up, you probably would you put more emphasis onto the damage rating of the 3 damage type and not too much on the summon. So the summon damage ratio towards the other one would kind of diminish as the other one would gain the whatever gear you have, you buff all these things for sure. So yeah, I mean these are just number to take note. That's all. A lot of people like the Worthless Kraton because it tends to give a very nice number because it's always crit, right? So if your brutal is 60%, you'll be brutal, and it's a big red number. But with 8 seconds cooldown, it's actually not that great in terms of the DPS. It's alright. I mean, it is much like the one that we have here, alright? And the other one is an area, but it's melee, of course. Now, you could, of course, get a buff on this one if your power and magic is above 75%. I would say it's quite challenging to keep that up because, most of the time you probably be operating under 75% for the whichever build that you use. I've tried to observe it. Probably I'll just review some of the video replay and see whether I could have done something here or not. But I mean, it is an option there as well. But I think realistically, I'm looking at this number rather than this number. All right. Then you can summon the six soldier as a signature, and if you compare the 3 signature, I mean the signatures are again. Signature is always like this, right? I mean, it's very nice burst damage, but when you average out the 42nd time, it is actually not a very good layer. It's just another 9k on top. And this air defense I'm not going to use it because the DPS is actually pretty low. All right. So this, I mean, if you go for a tri-build, probably the signature is something that you have to take as well because it buffs your power tree. But that's all about it. Unthinkable, like I said, it's a little bit better than the other layering because it's damage over time. So yeah. So if So this is again the filler or the spender. So yeah, I mean, like I said, all these are within the 36 to 44,000 range. Take your pick, whichever makes sense to you. All right. So what I've done is that, okay, after I've done all these things, I do like 5% buff by taking this one here. So I take all these things here. Then all my numbers will change, of course. All these numbers will become higher. So what I've done is that just to confirm because I'm still not quite sure how the game works. I'm sure how the game. Well, okay, I'm comfortable in knowing how the game works, but you can never be sure, right? Because there are so many elements of surprises here and there. So I've spent a lot of time. Just take down the number and do a delta with the unbuffed one and see what's the DPS increase. And then I want to see an absolute number. What's the DPS increase per 1% of the 5%? It's useful because for try build later, for this one here, there is a 30% buff to it. I'm not going to just try to do 3 damage type and then take all the numbers again one by one. It's going to be like taking forever, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to extrapolate using formula. So, but before I do that, I have to make sure that my theory is sound. So it is actually very sound. If you take a look at all these numbers here, which is a verification against the, if you remember here, all the 5% buff you get 65 to 85. 0.65% and 0.68%. So all these are like, all these things are like 0.65. This is close enough. 0.68 if it's physical. So all these things are well within my expectation. So I know that sometimes when I type in, I get a little bit sleepy. I may get it wrong, but I use it as my gauge. So I know that I key in everything correctly. Now this is important because all this delta here will help me derive what is it? The 30% buff. So with the 30% buff, all these numbers are being derived using the baseline plus the 5% plus the 30%. So it becomes a 35%. All right. So it's a baseline plus 35% delta based on the 5% observation here, the 1% here. All right. Not this one. This one. So I've done that. I've done that for the try build, and after that I went to tech build. Now tech build is quite easy. So what you do is that I just switch on here. Then my magic is gone, leaving my power, and I do the same thing. Click 20 times and observe what's the power range and so on. Take down all the numbers, and all these numbers are being recorded, and I have an idea on the tech power here. So the tech power changes in the following way. Like I said, this become a vulnerability debuff, which is 25% instead of the 10% that other trees has, and this one become this one become a cooldown power, the crumple full, which is great, and and after that there's this one also become being buffed as well, 50% power based buff and the cooldown has been shortened to 30 seconds. So I've done it for tag, I've done it for sorcery. So not going to go through all these numbers, but just want to highlight to you. This one will then have something called a damage over time added to it. But you look at the DPS, it's really tiny. The little DOT on top. So I wouldn't max it at all. So those marked in bold are the one that I eventually max it for my analysis later on the other sheet I'm going to show you. So yeah, I mean all this number does tell me that channel torment is great because now it becomes cooldown of 10 seconds. So you can channel for 4 seconds, 10 seconds. So what I've done is to make sure that my this one, the pierce the veil, is not going to be. I think I may have made a mistake later. I'll show you. It's not going to take the 100% because you can't. You can only take 60% because for 40%, which is 4 second time, you need to channel the other one. So yeah, I'll correct it on the fly. All right. As for the Latveria, is the again I just switch on the other side and just take down numbers. It doesn't really kind of like it's not that exciting for me, but the interesting thing to note is the declaration of war actually come up to be pretty high as well in terms of damage. So the robots will get all summoned. All these three will get summoned when you do a blockade. So that's great. And after that, I think this is pretty nice because it's there all the time, indefinite. It does quite a nice passive DPS do nothing. And then, of course, people like this worthless Kraton, which the DPS is not great, like I mentioned, but is, but I don't know, man. I mean, I think I just try it out. And the signature get a little bit better as well. Instead of the 9,000 you've seen, become 25,000. So, summon are actually quite good. So now, we have done all these things. Why we are doing all these things is that I want the next. Okay, so before I click it there, I would like to just. This is the footnotes, right? So, what I'm going to show you is the analysis of the 4 scenario I talk about. Based on certain assumptions and based on the power that I pick, I max out 6 of them, and in the case of specialization, I have picked like maybe 4 from each trees to max. All right. So again, these are all in theory. In real life, it may be slightly different, but I'm just looking at it from a game design perspective without gear. Now with gear on, things will become different. Of course, everything changes. So. I just would like to use that to guide me to gear my hero. That's all it is. I'm not saying that which tree should be buffed, which tree should be not, because at the end of the day, there's so many other variables out there. But I'm always having a curious mind about how this game is being designed. That's all, right? So this is what it is. So before I look at all this, talk about all this number, maybe I'll just tell you what it is about. So for the tri build, I have in mind what power I like to pick for my tech, for my sorcery, for my Latveria, and I know that my signature is being buffed. After I use my signature, my tech DPS is going to buff for 8 seconds, 25%, with a cooldown of 40 seconds. So within the 48 seconds, I have 8-second buff. That's how it is, right? So sorcery will get a buff as well, but there's no buff on Latveria. So I've got a total of 115 K of DPS. Just treat as an index, like a score, because with gear this will change, right? I want to take down the non-summon DPS as well, because whatever legendary I use, right? If I use the power cosmic, if I use Gunir, I can only buff my 82%. Just to be very mindful of that, right? Because whatever gear you put in that is not summoner, it probably not. I mean, although one of them, I probably, I could change this if I use the Kraton. What is it called? The worthless Kraton. That may change a little bit, but I just pick a pet instead. So yeah, so that is something to be mindful. All right. When it comes to the tech tree, now tech tree has an element of melee to it. So I would have expect this one to be higher than sorcery. It is not. It doesn't seem to be so. Because I picked the melee, that's probably of the lowest one. No, actually not. Sorry, I rewind a little bit. Before I do that, let me correct that mistake first. I mentioned that I want to correct a mistake on the fly. So the one that I've made a mistake is this one here. So it's H8. I should reduce it by a little bit. So maybe that's why. So I need to times 0.6, right? Because this power can only be used when you're not channeling the torment, right? So it has an impact, of course. Then now the number makes sense. Now the number makes sense to me now. So the melee is always, I would expect it to be higher as well, because it is a melee tag. Melee tag is always a little bit higher. You've seen it on the score sheet. And then also there's an extra 15% not factored in as well. The only thing about tag build is that if you look at the grade 80 legendary, I really don't know what to recommend. Really, there's no. I wish that there was a grade 80 power cosmic. I think it should, right? Because if you think about it, all the legendary grade 70, the reason why they have created the power cosmic, because they know that none of them really do too much to the hybrid gear, so hybrid hero, so they created something called power cosmic. Now power cosmic is not as powerful as a grade 80, for sure it is not. So then again, we're back to the same problem again, right? For those who really like the best of the best, then what can we do? So I think maybe they compensate a little bit here and there, because there's no such legendary for them. I don't know. Yeah. But having said that, it really depends how you build it, right? Because if you don't use the pad and use the worthless Kraton, a high percentage of your power actually comes from physical, right? Because if you do that, then then things become interesting because you could use an axe, right? You could use an axe. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's why I love Doctor Doom. There's so much discussion going on. I mean, even now, I'm still like learning my way through. All right, as you see. So anyway, so that's the sorcery. That is there's a number that is quite similar to Tri-Build itself. The Latveria is around there. So I mean, I would say that the power range is quite similar in a sense. It's not varying too much, I would say. I mean, then again, when it comes to the summon gear, things become a different story because summon gear are known to be pretty good when it comes to the summoners, artifacts, or even the legendary or so on. So yeah, I mean, I don't know these 3 raids or 4 raids which one will win. And I'm very sure a lot of you out there probably know much better than me. I'm just a guy who just love numbers and would like to share with you. Some of you may benefit from it to just think about what exactly to do with this game. But yeah, I mean, so this is some of the numbers that I would like to share with you. And I mean, like I always say, right? Sometimes it's about picking something that's fun, something that you can cope with and find that, yeah, I mean, I enjoy the game. Whether it is going to be killing something in 20 seconds or 19.5 seconds or maybe 19 seconds. I mean, I don't know. To me, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. I prefer something that's fun. All right, so I hope that that is useful in a sense. And by the way, that he has also got a green costume. That's can't really see what he looked like. But yeah, I mean, that's a green costume. That is it's a white one. All right. So yeah, I hope this video is useful for those of you who are seeking for a build that you like to consider some of this power and so on. And the next video I'm going to do is going to be Doctor Doom Tri-Build because I really enjoy hybrid. I'm a passionate fan of hybrid. Whether it is being disadvantaged because there's a lack of grade 80 legendary, let's not talk about it right now. But I'm just saying that I love hybrid, and the first video I'm going to do for Doctor Doom on the build guide video is going to be a Tri-Build with no specializations. All right, till the next time we meet. Thank you so much for watching this really long video. Bye.